live from Los Angeles.
Again, Atlanta out of timeouts. Brunson rattles in the second one. Knicks by 3. Hawks have to throw it down the lake. They're out of timeouts. 1.2 remaining. McCollum drives from half court. Oh, he banks it in. He banks it in. No, they wave it off. They wave it off. He didn't get it off in time.
I mean, if only it counted, right? But the Knicks, they're sure glad that it didn't. Was New York saved by the bell in Atlanta? Iman Shumpert, he says there's actually one New York play call that deserves a closer look. But it's not just orange and blue. Big Blue took over the big dance. Congratulations, of course, to Michigan. But with the tournament over, I think it's time to take a look at whose draft stock is on the way up. And Victor Wembanyama, he suffered an injury in the Spurs game. So we have the latest on that and how it could impact his 65-game eligibility. NBA Today starts right now. Wemby is where we begin our show today. Victor and the Spurs took on the Sixers last night and finished with 17 points, 3 blocks in his first 16 minutes of play. So everything, it seemed like it was going to be normal for the MVP candidate until about 11 minutes left in the second, right? That is when we're going to show it to you right here. Wemby, he collides with Paul George on this play. He goes to the locker room. He did not return with what the Spurs are calling a rib contusion. So the most plugged-in man in basketball, Shams Charania, is here with the latest. Shams, are the Spurs bracing for Victor to miss any sort of time here?
I'm told the Spurs are not anticipating this to be a major injury. He underwent X-rays last night on that rib, and X-rays for Victor Wembanyama returned negative, I'm told. And so he will be undergoing more testing later today. But there is hope and optimism that those tests will confirm what they felt last night was that the anticipation is nothing major. Okay, so a bit of an exhale here, at least in terms of anything major for Victor and the Spurs. But, Tim, you cover this team incredibly closely, and sometimes you got to protect players from themselves, particularly because the Spurs aren't looking to win the regular season. They're looking for something bigger. So what is San Antonio weighing before he returns?
Well, listen, Wemby cares about the award, so it is a priority for the organization. He needs to play at least 20 minutes in one more game to be eligible for the awards. I will be shocked if he does not do that. He's going to hit that 65-game minimum. Now, they do have a little bit of a cushion here because they played in the NBA Cup final, which counts towards that. But, again, it's more of a day-to-day type injury, fortunately. I don't think they're going to have to put him out there when he's hurt, but he's going to hit the awards minimum. All right. In San Antonio, we know if they are nothing but conservative in these sorts of cases, right? So they're not going to put a player out there that isn't ready to return, particularly someone as important as Victor Wembanyama. But you bring up the awards. It's impossible not to have these two things coincide. So Wemby, Luka Doncic, right? Only one game away from qualifying for award eligibility. These are some of the other notable players as we talk about that 65-game minimum that feels like it's coming up a lot. Nikola Jokic, he needs to play in 2 more games of the Nuggets' final 3 to be eligible. You got Kawhi Leonard, right? He needs to play in 3 of the Clippers' last 4 games here. So this is a conversation that is really heating up around the NBA. Our NBA champ, Iman Shumpert, beaming in for this conversation. Shump, I'm curious. It feels like every time a deserving, nearly qualified player goes down, we're talking about this 65-game minimum. It comes under scrutiny. Do you think it needs to change, though?
You know me, I'm not willing to bend or break rules like that. I grew up with my dad telling me if you can't do it, if you want to do it, you got to do it on your terms in your house. If you're going to be in this house, you got to do it this way. That's how a rule works. I think that if the NBA bends now, they'll have to keep bending forever, and then eventually you're going to have to scrap the rule, and I think the rule was in place for a certain reason. Yeah. In my book, you gotta stick hard with the rule. I know it's going to have every year things are going to change as far as people being on the board argument and their case for it. But if you do that and you start bending over, then it's, after a while, you're going to have to scrap it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Shump. I don't think it's something that he needs to bend, but it can shift. And we're all old school guys, want to see you guys play, want them to see healthy. But there should be a grace period, and it could be a minute restriction thing we talked about. If you do the math, you got to get 20 minutes per game, or at least 25 minutes. If you do that by 82, it's a little over 1,600 minutes. If you clock it at 17 or 1,800 minutes for guys to be qualified or eligible, I think that kind of changes or shifts the case to make it somewhat feasible for these guys, because a lot of these guys are very much playing a lot of minutes. LeBron James has played more minutes than Wemby, but he's ineligible.
But you think there needs to be some sort of shift?
Some type of shift to help make this, rule more feasible.
Well, and I crank it up to 2,000. That is a significant amount of minutes. But, you see that list. There is no world that you can tell me Cade Cunningham is not one of the top 15 most impactful players in the league this season. He's the primary reason the Detroit Pistons are the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I mean, and Edwards, like, nobody's wondering, is he, like, forget top 15. He's a top 10 player. Cade's probably a top 5 player. I get it. You wanted to get rid of load management.
Yeah,
that is
really
that is
the impetus
important,
here.
right? And it has served that intent. But in cases like this, these are not load management issues. Cade Cunningham suffered a collapsed lung diving on the floor for a loose ball, and that's going to cost him All-NBA. That's not right. If there is a significant injury, I do feel like you should be able to qualify via minutes.
It was an issue, right? The resting healthy players for nationally televised games, the load management. It's something that needed to be addressed. And this rule has done that, right? It has done what it is intended to do in that sense. However, you're also then getting players who are almost there, who maybe by an arbitrary 1 or 2 games are so close. And the fallout of this is you're also having players who wouldn't necessarily qualify for All-NBA then be in that conversation. And all of a sudden, teams are looking at their bill come max dollar time, and it's looking a little bit different. But the question is, are you hearing that the NBA, considering this has gotten loud, I think, in the last couple of weeks, Shams, are they willing to make any sort of changes to the rule?
Malika, you saw Adam Silver at the Board of Governors. He was pretty clear that he believes that the rule doesn't really need changing, that it's working. And I think the league office seems to share that sentiment. But then the NBPA comes out with a statement that they feel like this needs to be abolished. I will say that the NBPA, their leadership, they agreed to this rule. Some of the membership there did advocate for it, but that doesn't mean that, hey, we can't go back and amend it to tweak it, to figure out, is there a solution? Because like, Tim, you just said, Cade Cunningham, there's other examples. Luka Doncic leaving for 2 games for a birth of a child abroad. Anthony Edwards is another example. Victor Wembanyama, let's say Victor Wembanyama has to sit the next week to get ready for the playoffs. For example, like, we're really going to keep him away from All-NBA team. Is there I don't know what the solution is, but is there a solution, an asterisk, something that can allow the players, something to be amended that will allow guys like this to still have an equal opportunity?
Right.
That's what I think there will be maybe some more conversation about this summer, but I don't think we're going to see a groundbreaking change here.
Right, and that's the sense I'm getting. Go ahead, Shump.
I believe wholeheartedly that I have not heard anything better than what Danny said as far as the minutes being able to stack up and that being your case that you can make. I love that. Besides that, though, making it a qualifying factor, I think that when you implement a rule, you have to stick to it. Otherwise, people are going to walk all over it.
That's fair. And talking to agents this morning, I said, is this
We're on SportsCenter. Victor Wembanyama sat out the second half of the Spurs win over the Sixers last night after suffering a rib contusion. As you know, he's the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's an MVP candidate, second favorite in that regard, but he needs to play at least 20 minutes in one more game to be eligible for the awards, and San Antonio has 3 regular season games left, as we're joined by NBA champion and analyst Iman Shumpert. And we don't know the severity of the injury, but it can be painful. It can take weeks in some cases to resolve on its own. Do you sit Wemby, Iman, and get him ready for the playoffs, or do you bring him in to play those 20 minutes to be able to get DPOY?
Well, thank God I'm not the coach, Hannah, but I'm letting him play, and that young man has worked his tail off to make sure that his team is in a great position. He has talked and been very loud about what he feels like he should be pursuing as far as individual awards. I think that San Antonio Spurs should reward him and make sure that he does that. It is a bruise, entirely. So I'm hoping that it's nothing too bad, that he can play through it, get his 20 minutes on the board, and then have a seat and get ready for playoffs.
Listen, if he's not at 100%, what does that do to the Spurs and kind of the makeup of the East going into the postseason, the West going into the postseason?
Well, I think that they've put themselves into a comfortable position. I think that he was only playing, the extra amount for the in-season awards. Right now, the Spurs have put themselves in a great position to make sure that they can be where they need to be and match up with OKC for that final round if everything goes as planned. But the plan for Wemby and making sure that he's healthy, that's a guy that's a young guy. He's a competitor. He's going to want to be out there. I can't imagine a world where Wemby doesn't suit up, play his 20 minutes and beyond.
Yeah, obviously we know they have OKC's number, and they are 11-5 without Wemby this season. Let's go to the East. We saw the Knicks beat the Hawks last night. They got really lucky, surviving a near buzzer beater from C.J. McCollum. Jalen Brunson had struggled a couple of games, but he was really good down the stretch. Now they're going to be playing the Celtics this week. What do you need to see in these last few games from New York to convince you that they can make a significant playoff run?
Well, I was encouraged with just handling the storm. They've had issues with all the teams above 500 as of late and guys at the top of the conference that they've been playing. And it was good to see them get out there and do that, to see Cat play efficiently, to see Jalen not play as well, but then make sure that he keeps his guys close and at the end of the game take over the game and be the clutch factor that he normally is. The most encouraging part of it all was to see at the very end of the game, you finally got to see Jalen Brunson and Cat play their little two-man game. And I've been talking about that so much. I want to be scared of that. I want people to fear that. And finally they gave me a little look of it. It was a pistol action, some pinch post action, but it's him and Cat, and you got to pick a decision who you want to kill you.
Yeah, listen, that was a little appetizer, right? We need a full menu of that. A full menu.
I need a lot of it, a healthy diet.
Who do you want to kill you? Mon, we'll see you more on NBA Today at 3 Eastern. Thanks, my friend.